It's rare when a VR game gets attention that places it on par with other flavors of the month. Does help though when said VR game is also built with flat-screen crossplay in mind. Gaining notoriety just in time for spoopy season, let's see why Phasmophobia is already pulling in Scream compilations and co-op parties despite being in early access. For those of you unaware, I ended up getting a VR headset a good while back, a Quest specifically if you care. Looking over information about VR and other VR YouTube channels started showing me footage of this game getting attention as not only a fantastic VR horror game, but one that could be played in flat screen along with VR players. Then some friends started playing it, and it started climbing the stream and Twitch charts. I know an upcoming flavor of the month when I see one, but with a major difference. I really wanted to play this one myself. A ghost hunter sim is a fantastic idea for a horror game, taking the tropes of that paranormal reality TV boom of the early 2010s. Instead of middle-aged men yelling at empty rooms and completely freaking out whenever a boom mic bumps against the wall, then immediately declaring it haunted by demons so that they can get that sweet sci-fi paycheck, the ghosts are real and actually want you dead in this game. So you grab a group of friends to deduce what's haunting the location, gather the evidence you can, and get the hell out alive. This is where I'm going to have to start making comparisons between VR and flat screen, because your playstyle makes a world of difference in a few ways, and not just graphics, but gameplay and control as well. Speaking graphically, these don't really stand up to any kind of scrutiny. Things look good and realistic when they're not well lit, which is often and kind of the point, but these textures aren't always the best. Character models have realistic proportions, but are animated very robotically and stiff for flat screen players, while VR players look if they're stumbling around drunkenly while they've strapped a Nintendo Ring-Con to their dick. Those with the VR view will feel very immersed in locations, even though they have the standard floating hands view, as well as those hands not really matching up perfectly with your actual hand position unless you tweak some settings. You can very easily freak out your friends in flat screen by crouching, then tilting your view directly up, making you look more monstrous than the ghost at times. Tell them you're being possessed and head back toward them without saying a word. It'll get newbies every time. The ghosts themselves, when they appear, run the gamut of creepy models, as we've seen little long-haired girls, a baby with a toothed circular maw for a face, a decrepit old man, a woman wielding scythe, and what have you. The fact that they only appear in glimpses in darkness lets you fill in the blanks, but like the textures, they don't really hold up to the best scrutiny if you can clearly show them when they're animated. There's no focus on jump scare horror either. You won't have to concern yourself with faces lunging out toward you Five Nights at Freddy's style. The most in-your-face effect will happen upon being caught and killed by the ghost, in which a pair of rotting hands slowly creep in from the side of the screen and grab you, teleporting you to a creepy location. It's not that jump scare and startle kind of horror, which will make most people think that maybe the game won't be all that scary, and they'll just shrug this all off with a laugh. Then they open the door to their first haunted house, have that low droning noise hit their ears, and all bets are off.
Yep, we did.
This game does not have music. Everything that you're hearing right now music-wise are just spooky ambient tunes I picked out of the YouTube audio library. Instead, this game goes for full atmosphere and nothing but sound work. That low drone I mentioned is a game changer. As long as you're hearing that drone, you're able to encounter activity. There's something about that droning noise that immediately puts you on edge, and most groups tend to chat with each other just to hear something besides that. It's extremely unnerving and makes every creak, footstep, and whisper feel so much worse regardless of its source. And you will hear all sorts of sounds. The game is easily built for headphones or any proper spatial audio system, be it a decent VR headset or full room surround sound. The noises you hear will have you peeking over your shoulder and freaking out even more when you start hearing whispers, breaths, and gurgles coming from just behind you. The audio puts you on edge so much that you'll end up jump scaring yourself more often with every innocuous shadow and light flicker. On the technical side, it's cool that this game encourages both a local and a push-to-talk microphone usage. Other players can hear you spatially when speaking in local or voice-activated chat, so the further away someone is, the quieter they become. You're also given a walkie-talkie activated with a button press, or amusingly in VR by clicking either controller as it's held above your left shoulder. This gives the extra effect of a radio or drive-through filter over their voice, making it much easier to understand where the voice is coming from. The game will also take advantage of this to cut your communications, and it's spine-chilling to hear a door slam on your friend, trapping them in the room upstairs while nothing but static comes through your walkie-talkie as they scream for help. I'm going to say this as strongly as possible. If you have not played this game before, play the tutorial. I don't care if you're playing alongside someone who's already played and they promise they're going to teach you everything as you go. Play the tutorial. You'll want to be able to get a feel for these various gadgets and how they work, without the threat of death making the rest of your playthrough kind of boring when you can't contribute to it. If you're still stubborn as hell, I will do my best to give the quick and dirty of each detection tool, but even with this, and the fact that I'll cover some of the other items that are not explained by the tutorial, play the tutorial. You'll acclimate yourself much better. To start every mission, pick up the key from the desk and press the keypad at the back of the truck. Once you've unlocked the house, this will start a 5-minute timer that allows you to hunt and plan without being in any danger from the ghost. You'll still see activity, but you won't have to worry about getting trapped and killed in the process, so make the most of that time. Note that when you reach later levels and you start gaining access to be able to set higher difficulties, you'll trade off that safety setup time and risk more aggressive hauntings, with less insurance payments upon your death, while being able to earn higher cash multipliers. Check the whiteboard and listen to the briefing, and you'll get a bit of information about the ghost, including the name that it tends to respond to. I cannot stress this enough, but do not just run around yelling its name, as this will make it more likely to attack. Reserve saying its name only when you're coming up completely dry on any activity. This game uses voice recognition that's built into Windows 10, so like using Cortana, Alexa, or Google Assistant, keep any questions clear and precise. Don't mix them in with the name, and make sure you're using local chat, but keep in mind that the ghost can hear you at any time, even if you're using push-to-talk on local chat. In the truck, you'll see monitors for each team member's sanity, the map of the location, with real-time tracking of team members, and a graph showing the level of activity at any given time, as well as some shelves containing your various bits of gear. The flashlight should go without explanation. This game is dark. And even though there are light switches and room lighting available in each location, turning on too many of these will keep ghost activity down, or possibly trip the breaker, so a flashlight is your best friend. Flat-screen players can either hold one in hand to aim it, or press the T key to turn it on and off when holding another item, provided you picked one up. VR players can activate a flashlight, then place it on their belt for the same effect. The video camera seen on the first shelf should have a red light in the upper corner, is used to track activity in the room as well as clue you into ghost orbs. For those of you not in the know, in real life, ghost orbs are literally just dust and bugs that are caught on camera, but since they're too small to be focused on, they appear as floating lights. In the game, they are proof of certain hauntings, so just roll with it. Once placed, you can head back to the truck to watch the feed on the monitor. If you see an orb, mark it down in the journal to narrow down your choices. Ghostwriting isn't just a means of getting someone to write your song or novel while you take the credit. As in this game, you can use this blank book, the open one with a pencil inside, and leave it in the suspected haunted room. If anything appears in the book, be it words or symbols, regardless of what they say, just mark down ghostwriting in your journal. The spirit box, this radio-looking thing, blends the EVP phenomenon with some radio wave hokey to speak to the ghost, and it's one of the few tools that requires voice recognition to use. Ask specific questions like, "Where are you?" and "Can you hear me?" among others from a list that you should be able to find searching around the internet. After asking the questions, wait for the radio to scan, and if at any time you hear a voice talking back from the box, usually a single word repeated 2 or 3 times, you can mark Spirit Box off as evidence in your journal. If you locate a Ouija board in the house, that will work in much the same manner, but it will need to be glowing and only answers more specific questions. It may even tell you where to find the ghost, but activity on the board doesn't count as any form of evidence for the journal, only the spirit box does. Freezing temps tend to confuse new players. If at any time you see your breath while standing in a room, you're encountering freezing temps. It's much easier to notice in VR, but if you stand still and see smoke, or if you think you see a ghost orb but you're standing in the room and not looking at the camera feed, there's a good chance that you're just seeing your breath, and you can mark off freezing temps. When you have access to a thermometer, getting cold temperatures is a sign of ghost activity, but it is not the same as the freezing temps evidence. If you don't see your breath, don't count it as evidence. but trying to detect things in a room that's getting cold is a good way to track the ghost's preferred room. You can look around for one of the more concrete evidence options with the UV light, either with a UV flashlight, a smaller flashlight with a purple beam, or the UV glow sticks. These will reveal fingerprints or handprints that the ghost leaves behind. You'll only find these as a fingerprint on a light switch or a handprint on the door or window of the haunted room. When someone lays down a pile of salt, you can also track the ghost's footprints with UV light, but do not mark footprints as evidence. Only fingerprints and handprints count. The EMF reader is another one that'll seem to confuse most people, but it's pretty straightforward. Take this small white remote-looking thing with 5 lights on the top and wander around with it out and active. You will always see one green light when it's on, but if at any time it starts beeping and shows more than one light, you may be near a ghost. Do not mark an EMF reading as evidence unless you get all 5 lights to illuminate. Any activity will still give you a good location to start testing things, even if it's not all 5 lights. VR players have a distinct advantage as they can place this EMF reader on their belt and keep it active as they wander the house looking for other kinds of activity. Since the item audibly beeps, you can simply look down to check it instead of having to swap it like in flatscreen. When you find all 3 pieces of evidence, you have a couple options. Either pat yourself on the back for a job well done and get the hell out of Dodge, or grab the photo camera for some more objectives. There's usually a few on the whiteboard, the first always being identify the correct haunting. But things like get a photo of dirty water in the sink or cleanse the area with a smudge stick can net you some extra cash. You can also get cash by using the photo camera to take pictures of some of the evidence pieces. Each piece of visual evidence, glowing Ouija boards, bones, which you can also retrieve, or the ghost itself if you're that hardcore. But you have limited photos, so don't just photograph everything. If it's a proper credited photo, it'll appear in your journal with a title over it, while bonus objectives will be crossed off on the whiteboard, with the exception of the ghost identification one. Proper photos and bonus objectives add to your cash and experience, allowing you to access cooler equipment and bigger locations down the line. It's also possible that evidence might take forever to manifest, and you may only have 1 or 2 concrete pieces. In this case, note what ghosts are available to your current evidence, and then focus only on using the tools that will help you identify those ghosts. So if you have 3 options and none of those can be found with a spirit box, you can safely leave that one be. Even reading up on each ghost type might help you make an educated guess. For example, if your options are demon or Yurei, and you find everyone's sanity meter is tanking when they enter the house, you're probably dealing with a Yurei. It's not a 100% guarantee, as getting 3 pieces of evidence would, but it could help if you're otherwise lost. Of course, if you spend too long in the ghost location, it will come after you. And regardless of how often you hear it whispering in your ear and messing with the lights, the only time the ghost will actually be deadly is when it enters hunting mode. If at any time during your play, your flashlight starts to flash on and off repeatedly, and especially if you hear your heartbeat, the ghost is on the prowl and it will likely manifest itself, allowing you to take a photo of it, but also placing you in immediate danger. Your only real defense is to run and hide, keeping still and quiet if you find a hiding spot like a closet or locker, but you can outrun most ghosts if you have the room to do so. Ghosts will try to lock you in during the hunting phase, and you won't be able to open any door that they've sealed shut until the ghost settles down again. Defensive items like smudge sticks and crucifixes can occasionally calm certain ghosts, but likely won't save you when it outright goes into hunting mode, so be wary. If you get caught and die, you'll lose any additional gear that you brought along, but you'll nab insurance money to recoup the losses. You cannot lose starter gear though, so you'll always have enough to detect the ghost, but just not any extra or fancy stuff unless you buy and bring it along. Also, don't worry about retrieving your gear from the house. Dying is the only way that you'll lose anything. Be wary of many guides, myself included, as this is an early access game, and the devs haven't really come out to outline exactly how everything works. You'll likely come across a lot of speculation and conflicting information on how these things work, so don't 100% buy into anything that anyone's telling you. Get some tips here and there, but do your own experimentation and see what you can discover. If you'd like to know more about the game and some concrete tips that have worked for all of us in Grindstone, Drybear has an excellent couple of guide videos, and I'll just link them in the description as well. I have a distinct feeling this game was designed for VR players first, before it was designed for flat screen. Like, playing in VR gives you a lot of distinct advantages. Being able to keep things on your belt active while still holding something means you can technically hold 4 objects instead of the flat screen player's 3. Though you won't have a free hand if you do that, and you won't be able to communicate with a walkie-talkie or open doors, you'll have no trouble setting down any object on a table for quick retrieval. You can also wield 2 objects at once, letting you do things like scan around the room with a UV flashlight in one hand and the thermometer in another. The targeting reticle in flat screen is also pretty fickle, and VR players will less likely have to worry about being so precise to retrieve items. The default keyboard layout in flat screen tends to be a bit overly complex and convoluted. Lighting smudge sticks with the lighter is a bit awkward and confusing in flat screen, while VR players simply just bring one to the other with both hands. Though in VR doors can be tricky, and the mouse to change the camera feed seems to have a harder time working properly, it's overall just a far more intuitive game to play in VR. Of course, the trade-off is having to face those ghosts quite literally head-on, so those who are already freaking out over the game in flat screen might not find those advantages that useful if they have to see the ghosts more or less in person. I really like where this is going. It's pretty concept complete as far as I'm concerned, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement or additional features. Physics and object detection definitely need to be tightened up. I've been caught on stairs more than a few times in VR mode, and I'm still not sure if I'm able to sprint in that control scheme. The walking pace is very slow, and while fine for houses, it becomes outright tedious when you're in larger maps. Larger maps generally tend to be less thrilling when you're not getting activity, and take far longer to complete than the far more palpable 10 or 20 minutes for a house map. I'd also really like to see larger group sizes, since 4 seems great, but to really feel like a proper hunting team, I'd love to see like 6 for the big locales, even though it might feel cramped for the smaller houses. Maybe just limit the party size by stage? I'm not sure that would really work out too well. I should probably just check out their Discord. Is this October's new It game? Well, it is pulling impressive numbers at the moment, and while it's not exactly dethroning Among Us due to price and accessibility alone, it is giving plenty of other games a run for their money. Lots of high-profile YouTubers are starting to play through now, and I can only imagine this will get bigger as Halloween approaches. Let's hope I'm ahead of the curve for once, and feel free to share this video with friends that have a vested interest in this game. And if you're also interested in seeing compilations or playthroughs of Grindstone's Ghost Adventures, don't be afraid to let me know in the comments.